Hi everyone, so my name is Lauren and the title of my research paper is Vaccines for Cancer, the Future of Immunotherapy. So for the purposes of this assignment, I really wanted to take a look at the kinds of techniques that are currently being studied to get us closer to creating a vaccine for cancer, which is something that seems so revolutionary, the thought of being able to vaccinate people against a disease like cancer. So the thesis statement that I was able to come up with is, though many treatments are currently being explored within the realm of cancer research, 3 specific techniques being studied to create cancer vaccines are those using induced pluripotent stem cells, direct tumor vaccination, and CAR T immunotherapy. So those are the 3 specific techniques that I took the time to research and try to better understand while working on this paper. As far as necessary background goes, I took a look at how many people are affected by cancer. And an interesting statistic that I was able to come across in my research is that in the United States alone, an estimated 609,640 people will die from cancer in 2018 alone. And then on top of that, an additional 1,735,350 new cases will be diagnosed. And like I said, that's just in the United States alone. Cancer is a disease that affects people regardless of their age, sex, nationality, race. It's something that's incredibly, far-reaching. But the good news is that more and more federal funding is being set aside for cancer research. So, for example, the National Cancer Institute reported a $275 million increase in the funds that it was allowed between 2017 and 2018. So it got that additional $275 million to put towards finding new treatments and finding new ways to identify and prevent cancer. Another piece of good background information, I talked about what vaccines are in general. So in general, a vaccine is defined as a medicine that, when injected into an individual, boosts the immune system's natural ability to protect against foreign and infectious agents like viruses and bacteria. So if you think about it, like when you go to get the flu shot, for example, after you've gotten the flu shot and then you're exposed to the flu in your everyday life, your immune system is better able to fight off that virus because it's seen it before, because you got the flu shot. So it just sort of amps up your body's natural ability to fight off infections on its own by introducing it, by showing your immune system that virus or bacteria ahead of time. But the interesting thing is that cancer vaccines work in a little bit of a different way. They actually work when someone already has cancer. That's where we're at right now with cancer research. So it's not preventative, it's more of a reactive measure. So cancer vaccines are different in that they work by delaying or ceasing the growth of cancer cells, shrinking tumors, or preventing the disease from coming back again. So that's something that was important to note when taking a look at cancer vaccines. So the first technique that I mentioned was induced pluripotent stem cells. So what on earth is an induced pluripotent stem cell? An induced pluripotent stem cell is an adult cell that has been taken from its adult form and regressed back to an embryonic-like state. And in so doing, you take cells back to a place where they have the ability to become a whole number of different kinds of cells. It sort of hits the reset button and brings them back to that embryonic-like state. And so with this in mind, and with the knowledge that we have about induced pluripotent stem cells, a group led by a guy named Corman took mice that had tumors in them and injected them with induced pluripotent stem cells, as well as an immune booster to sort of amp up the response that the mice were going to have. And what they were able to show in so doing is that 70% of the animals who had been vaccinated with a combination of induced pluripotent stem cells and the immune booster were actually able to clear the tumors that they had in them on their own completely in 4 weeks. So that was really exciting, that by vaccinating these mice that had cancer with induced pluripotent stem cells and an immune booster, they were able to clear cancer on their own. And the reason why they think this is because the induced pluripotent stem cells present a lot of different antigens on their surface. They have all sorts of different proteins that stick out of the cell membrane. So the immune systems in the mice saw these different kinds of proteins and were exposed to them and became familiar with them, and then were able to recognize some of those same proteins that were on the tumor cells and recognize them as foreign, and were able to clear them. So that was really exciting. So the second technique that I took a look at is direct tumor vaccination. And direct tumor vaccination is a method in which the same immune booster that was used in the study with induced pluripotent stem cells is combined with an antibody. And this antibody binds OX40, which is a specific protein that is located on the outside of T cells. And T cells are just a normal immune cell that we all have in our bodies as part of our immune system. So in this method, the purpose of the immune booster is to increase the amount of OX40 that's being expressed on the outside of T cells. So you give this immune booster, and the amount of OX40 on the outside of T cells is increased, it's being more expressed. Then the subsequent antibody comes in, you inject that next, which then comes in, binds on all those increased OX40 sites, and sort of wakes up the T cells, which allows them to begin recognizing and attacking cancer cells more efficiently. So the study that I investigated in relation to this method took mice, and the researchers implanted lymphoma tumors at 2 different sites inside the mice. And so what's unique about direct tumor vaccination is, just like the name sounds, the antibody and the immune booster are injected directly into a tumor. And what was very interesting about the results of this study is that the mice who were injected with both the immune booster and this antibody that binds to the T cells, when they got both of them, 87 of 90 mice that were tested were able to cure cancer completely, meaning not just the tumor that was injected, but also tumors of the same cancer that were at other points in their body. So that was really, interesting and exciting. However, there was an additional experiment that the same group did, in which mice were implanted with lymphomas, but also colon cancer cells, so 2 different kinds of cancers. And they did the same thing again. They injected the lymphoma with the immune booster and with the antibody, and what they found was that the T cells were only able to cure tumors that were of the same kind of cancer as the one that was injected. So in this example, only the lymphomas were able to be cleared from the body, not the colon cancer. So because those T cells were woken up inside the tumor of a lymphoma, it was only able to recognize other lymphomas, but not colon cancer cells. So that was a really interesting limitation of this method that was noted by the researchers. So it's definitely a more highly specific therapy, but it shows promise for people who are currently suffering with cancer and are seeking, an alternative to treatment like chemo or radiation. Then the last therapy that I looked at is called CAR T immunotherapy. And this is a very highly specific kind of therapy that's actually already being used. And what it does, the CAR stands for chimeric antigen receptor therapy. And it's a new and emerging kind of immunotherapy in which an individual's T cells are actually removed from their body, genetically altered so that way they're better able to target cancer cells, and then re-injected back into that individual. So as you can see, this is a very highly specific kind of treatment because everyone's T cells are going to be a little bit different. So like I said, it's markedly different than the immune-induced pluripotent stem cell therapy and direct tumor vaccination, just because it's so highly specialized. And for that reason, this treatment is one that is highly unlikely to ever give us anything that's going to be able to be streamlined. Like I said, because everyone's T cells are so different and everyone's bodies are so different, CAR T immunotherapy is going to be one of those therapies that can be used, but is highly unlikely to ever give us anything that can be used across the board. So in conclusion, the increase in funding for cancer research in recent years is bringing us closer to developing a vaccine for cancer, getting us closer to being able to inject cancers to clear them. And because this is, like I said, such a widespread disease, being able to treat being able to treat cancers with vaccines is something that might change the way that we start viewing this disease. So I hope that you learned something from watching this video, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.